In this lecture, we're going to have an overview of the Chinese educational system because regardless of whether you are working in a school, you're working with people who went to school, and we're all informed by our educational process. And there's three short caveats I want to make before I get into the three main points. First of all, when we talk about things like educational systems, I want to remind us of the 80-20 rule. Obviously, anything we say isn't going to apply 100% to everybody, but it's going to apply 80%, and so it's still of value to look at it. The second short caveat I want to make is to just briefly lay out how the educational system is set up. Kindergarten is 3 years, and it starts about the age of 3 to 6. Primary school is just very similar to what we have here in the West. 1st to 6th grade. Junior high is 3 grades set up. It's called junior middle school, so junior 1, 2, and 3. And then senior middle school is senior 1, 2, and 3, so also 3 years. So again, a total of 12 years like we'd have here in the US. And the third little caveat I want to make before we get into the main points is that why this lecture is so important is because we are using we use similar words. So the thing is, we think we're talking about the same things. When I talk about exams, there are exams in China, and so they're like, yeah, exams. The thing is, what's activated in my brain around the word exam and is what is activated in a Chinese brain around the word exam is two almost completely different things. And I have found the vocabulary around education to be actually one of the greatest mismatches, and that's why we want to talk about this, is because we're using the same words, but we are not talking about the same things. So 3 areas of how the educational system is going to have informed your Chinese friends. The first area is looking at a collective society versus an individualistic society. And again, I think this is one where we all nod and go, yeah, collective, individual, got it. I'm like, why are we starting there? But really, this is the key. From a very young age, Chinese obviously are in classes. The thing is, it is set up so different than it is here in the United States. For me, in my educational experience, I had similar classmates in 1st grade, but then in 2nd grade, we kind of shuffled. It was always so exciting, the first day of school, who's my teacher, who's going to be, is my best friend in the class with me. The Chinese will be in the same kindergarten class for 3 years. They'll be in the same primary education classmates for 6 years. They'll have the same junior middle school classmates for 3 years, the same senior middle school classmates for 3 years, and then the same college, university, undergrad classmates for 4 years. I didn't have anyone that I went through the whole educational system with. So when we talk about collective, when they talk about a classmate, there is a very strong sense of who my classmate is. It's a very specific concept of these 40, 50, 60 people, as opposed to, when I used the term in high school, I had 535 classmates, which obviously we're talking about very different things. The idea of competition then. So one of the junior middle schools that I taught at, there were 12 junior 1 classes, so 12 7th grade classes. There would be competitions. Drama class. So class 1 would have a drama competition against class 2. And so there was just this strong building of identity with the classmates, so using competitions. There would be tons of ranking, so sort of, again, to build that collective identity. It was unbelievable to me when I would ask, like, which of these 12 classes is the best in science? And they'd all be like, we all know class 7 is the best in science. There's just a really strong sense of the collective. And in this collective also, then you really represent whoever it is you're representing. So starting with your family, you represent your family. I'm not just going to school for myself. I'm going as a representative of my family. And then I'm a representative of my class within the school. And then I'm a representative of my school within the town or the city. And then within the greater country. So you never just represent yourself when you're out and about doing something. You represent others. The next area I'd like to look at on how the educational system forms people is the idea of being right versus being creative. And for us as Westerners in general, education system really values forms of being creative. Whereas for the Chinese, when you're there, you'll encounter the question, what's the right answer? And for us, this is sometimes befuddling. If you're working with students, they'll give you 2 sentences and they'll be like, which one is the grammar correct in? And you're like, they're both correct. It's a hard question to answer. And they're like, no, there is a right answer. This comes out of a long history of memorizing the text. How you showed you were an educated person was you memorized a lot of different texts, and that was how you could show you were educated. Creativity came within, then can I weave this into answers, thus showing I'm educated. So this partially comes from historically how education has been in China, that it's based on tests and on texts. So if you memorize the text and if you know then how to weave it into conversation, that's how you kind of incorporate some creativity. But the creativity isn't that you created the text yourself. It's that you're using a body of knowledge that is recognized as this is what it means to be an educated or a informed person in China. And then the system, the educational system, is very test-based. There will be midterms and there will be final exams. And it starts at a young age. Class projects, writing papers, building in anything that might involve some of my own thought is not built into the system at all. Again, this fosters then the whole idea of there is a right answer. Even just yesterday, I work with visiting scholars at Denver University. I had a visiting scholar say, now, Amy, is it the or the? And we went round and round about how it's both, that you can use the or the. And you could just tell we were just kind of missing each other, because I'm like, yes, they're both right. They can't both be right. And she wanted to say, now, is it before the vowel A you use? And I'm like, I have no idea. They both work. So that is the second area, is being right is going to be much more of a value than being creative. The third area is knowing your place versus finding your place in society. For us as Westerners, our educational system fosters this whole idea of helping you find yourself, helping you find what you're good at, what you want to do. Even now, I've got 4 nieces, and it's fascinating. They are 14, 12, 10, and 8. And the amount of discussion that goes around what are they interested in and what are they good at, and what kind of jobs do they think they might have in the future? What schools might they like to go to? What majors might they like to have? So there's just a lot of this idea of finding themselves. This is not how it is in the Chinese educational system. It is about knowing your place. This comes a lot from Confucianism, which Joanne has touched on in other lectures. But Confucianism helps to set up what is your relationships. That helps then to foster a harmonious society. So within the educational system, the teacher is over the student. And then within the classes, there's going to be different ranks as well. So it's sort of knowing your place and then kind of staying within your place and not bucking the system. Another way, in modern ways, that this has played out is with the one-child policy, which we know has changed to 2, but there's not going to be 2 children in a family now for a number of years, and they still won't get to the educational system for a number of years. So the way the one-child policy has influenced educational, one child really equals one chance. So that one child, the whole future of that family is kind of resting on that child to get a good job, to go to a good school, to be able then to provide for the family when they're all older. And so when you're going to school, you're not thinking so much about what's going to make me happy, but it's what is going to benefit the family. So it's sort of maybe your parents would tell you, you're going to be, I'd ask students, how'd you pick this major? And it was just so, at first, out of my paradigm for them to say, well, my mom told me I should be a lawyer. And I just, again, at first didn't quite know how to respond to that and to say, but do you want to be a lawyer? No, but that's where I can get a job, or whatever different profession, international relations, banker. The idea, this is where we see Chinese is much more of a pragmatic society than about your personal fulfillment. What do I need to do to support my family, to be able to just help? Yeah, in general, it's my family. And this whole idea of being fulfilled is not a cultural value and does not factor in. We'll also see a little bit of this in that there's rank within the class. So it was fascinating to me when I would ask my students, after I told you I taught at a junior middle school, so I'd have 40 students. And I loved teaching junior high. I also taught at universities, but the junior hires would be a lot more open with me than my university students. So after the midterm, I'd say, okay, out of this class, who did the best on the science test? Everyone could point. Xiao Wang did. Who got number 2? They could all point, Xiao Hui did. They knew exactly where they ranked in that class on every exam. I could say on the English test, who was number 1, on the math test. And so there was just this very strong sense of where you ranked within even the class. which was just foreign to me. And it would be foreign to them when I would say, it's interesting, I have two sisters. And I have no idea what their grades ever were. And they were just like, what? Your parents didn't discuss it? You didn't know? And I'd say no. And even within like my good friends, we didn't have this sense who was the best in the math class emphatically. Like we all knew who was good at math, who was good at this subject. But there wasn't this concept, oh, you're number one, I'm number two, he's number three, she's number four. So that's just really key in the cultural understanding of education in China is knowing your place versus finding your place. So as we come to the end of this lecture, if you truly can kind of begin to create categories in your head of what it means to come out of a collective society versus an individual and how that's going to play in the educational system, which then feeds on into adulthood and how they interact in the workplace and in the family. If you also can understand the value of being right versus being creative, and that the Chinese you're going to encounter with are going to want to know what's the right answer, what's the right way to do something, instead of how can I take this and then be creative with it. Creativity really is not a high cultural value. And the third area of knowing your place versus finding your place, and how that is bred into the educational system and then therefore feeds out into society. If I know my place, then I know how to function in society and how to be an appropriate adult in various situations. So that is how the educational system is going to influence and inform the people that you encounter as you come to serve in China.